I never wanted to perform, ever. And in acting class we did, and Craig and I got into a number of scenes where we did things together, and we used to get laughs. And we were both broke. He was married, had a kid, and I had said to him, maybe we can play some clubs or something, and maybe we can pick up some little money. And we put together some material, and then went out and ultimately, started to do a little bit of work, not much, a little bit of work. And then we had some material, and I sent it off, and one of the places was this new show called Lohman and Barkley. And ultimately, Crazy Circumstance got on as writers. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have anything. It was just, I'll just send this material off. And if you want the specific of it, this is why, in a sense, and the nature of the business is so crazy, because Craig and I played some various places, and I was sending some material out, and I knew that you needed to have where you sign off on the material. I forgot the term, it just went blank. I mean, you have to say a release form, so you send them the material and they can't be sued if they're using something like it. So I knew that much. And one day I ran into Penny Marshall, who was new to LA, and she had seen Craig and I, and she said, well, I'm told her about sending material. She said, well, there's a show just starting called Lohman and Barkley. You ought to check them out, And so I called up the Lohman and Barkley show, and I said, I have some material. Can I have a release form? And the girl on the phone said, a what? I said, this is Barry Levinson. I'd like to have a release form. And she said, just a minute. And then next thing I know, there's a producer. This is John Kay, a producer, and I said, oh, hi. I said, I need a release form. And he said, well, what do you have? I said, I got some material. Now, the reason that she put me in contact with the producer is when I said release form, and she was a temp that day, and somehow the release form sounded rather official. So she was afraid that she didn't want to insult me, that she didn't know what she was doing. So she gave me the producer, thinking that I somehow must, be a big shot of something. And I got to talk to him on the phone, and he said, well, where are you? I said, well, I'm at so-and-so. He said, well, why don't you come over? You're only 10 minutes away. I said, oh, yeah, sure. And I went there, and I go in, and I'm meeting with the producer. First time I ever met a producer. And we started talking, and we kind of hit it off. And he said, well, come see the show, and, we're going to do it on Sunday. And I told Craig, and Craig and I went over there, and we met Lohman and Barkley after the show, and there was one other producer, and we got hired.
Just like that.
I mean, it's a crazy fluke, the term release form seemed so official to her. We started on Lohman and Barkley as writers, and then we began to write and perform. And then Rudy DeLuca came on as a writer on the show, and then he would write and he would perform. And then that show won a local Emmy and got canceled like the next day. And right about that point, we ended up going for interviews for the Tim Conway show. And normally there's always two writers, but here there were three of us. And we got on the Conway show. We wrote a lot of physical stuff, a lot of physical things, because he was great with physical comedy. We did that show that didn't last long. It was like 13 weeks and got canceled. And then at that point, Craig wanted to go into just focusing on acting. And so then Rudy and I, started to work together, and then we got a show in England that Larry Gelbart was the producer of, and that was the Marty Feldman show.